I hope you're doing well, and I apologize that we have to go back to virtual learning. But with the COVID problem, here's the thing. This is what I keep on telling myself, is that the light is at the end of the tunnel. There is a vaccine. It's going to take time to get it out into the public, but we're almost there. We just got to be vigilant. We have to, I know it's going to be difficult during the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up and New Year's, but we just got to be careful. And we're taking some time off here at the church from being in person, just so that maybe, just maybe, we can do Advent together, which will start on the last weekend in November. So that's our hope. So anyhow, with that, what I want you to do is watch this video for small groups, and then meet with your small group via Zoom and have a discussion, have a talk about this video. So, what we've been talking about is a dismissed faith. We looked at, first of all, well, let's see, we looked at culture and how sometimes culture can cause our faith to wane or pull us away. We talked about identity, and what we find our identity in can pull us away from the faith if we're not careful. That we need to find our primary identity in who Jesus is at the cross. And not necessarily allow ourselves to find our entire identity in the things that we do, but in the things that who we are in Christ. And then we talked about our theology. Sometimes our theology isn't correct. We have a bad theology based on our experiences, and we got to get back to the Bible and understand what the Bible has to say about who God is. So today what I want to talk about is our actions, and how our actions need to live out into acts of worship. So I'm reminded of Indiana Jones. I don't know if you've ever watched the Indiana Jones movies, but in the Last Crusade, he had to take a leap of faith. He had to go through these specific challenges to find the Holy Grail. And in order for him to get to where the Holy Grail was at, there was this chasm that he had to go. He had to get to the other side, and it looked like there was nothing there between him and the other side of the chasm, and it was too far for him to jump to the other side. The reality is that there was a bridge there, but it was an optical illusion. You couldn't see the bridge because it blended into the background. So he had to take a leap of faith. He had to set his foot out and trust that something was going to catch his foot. And in some ways, sometimes our faith is like that. Sometimes we have to take a leap of faith. We wish that we could have everything, like I said last week, that Jesus would appear for small groups, and we could see him and we could ask him any question we want. And someday, our hope is that someday that will come true, that we will be with Jesus, and one day he will bring everything back together the way it's supposed to be. But until then, we put faith. We put faith in what has come before us, and we put faith in the hope that we have that one day God's going to rectify everything and bring us into the kingdom. So with that, I want us to talk about what does that faith look like. And so I'm going to read a few passages to you. Matthew 17, verse 20. Jesus is talking here, and he says this to his disciples. He said to them, "Because of your little faith, for truly I say to you, if you have faith like a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you." So in the context of this passage, the disciples are having a hard time. Somebody is possessed, and they tried to cast out the demon, and it wouldn't work, and they had to go to Jesus, and Jesus had to come in and fix the situation. And he said that they didn't have enough faith. Now, if Jesus just said that, that would be so discouraging. But then he goes on to say, if you even have faith as small as a mustard seed. Now, what does a mustard seed look like? It's one of the tiniest seeds there are. And when you plant it, it can grow into a bush that's like 12 feet high. And where birds can nest in it and all kinds of stuff going on. And Jesus is saying, if you just have a little faith, It's amazing the things you can do. Now he says that you can say to a mountain, move, and it'll move. Now I'm sure there's been people over 2,000 years that have tried to literally put that into practice and say, okay, I'm going to go to Mount Rushmore and I say move from here to there, or I'm going to go to the Appalachians and say move to, and well, I don't know if Jesus was talking literally that we could make physical mountains move. But I think that in the context of this passage, what he's saying is that if we have a little bit of faith, great things can happen with that. You know, he's not expecting perfection. He's not expecting 100% faith. He's expecting us to try and just put our faith in him a little bit and see what happens. So with that in mind, I want to ask 4 questions. 4 questions for you to wrestle with in your small groups. And I'll be sending out a discussion guide to the small group leaders that you can bounce questions off of with your small group as you guys meet in Zoom. But the first thing I want you to wrestle with is to understand, well, first of all, growing your faith takes time. Just like if I plant a mustard seed, it's going to take time for that to grow and be a big 12-foot bush. When you look at a skyscraper, you realize it took time and effort and materials to build that building. Or when you look at a mountain range, it took millions of years for something like that to form. And so it takes time to develop things that matter, like faith. So don't expect perfection out of yourself. Don't expect you to be a perfect Christian. What I expect you to do, though, is to try. Try and have faith. And put your faith in things that you know you can count on and you can depend upon. So with that in mind, I want us to take a look at Psalm chapter 8. And I want to ask this question. Hold on. Psalm 8. I want to ask the question, what causes me to be in awe of God? Once again, what causes me to be in awe of God? And Psalm chapter 8 says this, O Lord our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You've set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouth of babes and infants, you have established strength because of your foes, to still the enemy and the avenger. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him, and the son of man that you care for him? Yet you have made him a little lower than the heavenly beings, and crowned him with glory and honor. You have given him dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens and the fish of the seas, whatever passes along the paths of the seas. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. So the first thing I want you to get here is what causes me to be in awe of God. There's 2 things that I want you to get here. Number 1, there's 2 types of ways that God has revealed himself. There's called general revelation and special revelation. This psalm is focusing on general revelation. We believe that God created everything in the heavens and the earth. So when we look at that and observe that, whether you go on a vacation or whether you see pictures on Google or whether you're studying in a history book or science book or whatever, and you see God's creation play out the way it's supposed to, we can be in awe of God. When we look at animals, when we look at plants, when we look at the fish of the sea. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, just watch Discovery Channel or the Animal Planet or whatever. I mean, you're just blown away by the beauty and awesomeness of God's creation. And that's called general revelation. When we're amazed, you know, we could be even amazed at human beings, at our own bodies and the complexity of it and the cell and everything, that we're just blown away by God's creativity and how he put everything together. Then there's special revelation, and that's where we are in awe of God because of who Jesus Christ is. That's where we find just being amazed and blown away by all that Jesus did for us. So that's special revelation. General revelation is being in awe of God through all of creation. So the first question, what causes me to be in awe of God? That can help encourage faith. When we have different goggles on where we see God's creation as reflective of who he is and what he's all about. The second question I want you to wrestle with is, what are my deepest doubts about my faith and about God? Mark chapter 9, I want to read from that. Mark chapter 9, verses 22 to 25. And it goes like this. And it has often cast him into fire and into water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. So what's going on here is this guy has a child who is demon-possessed, and he's coming to Jesus asking for help. And Jesus said to him, if you can, all things are possible for one who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, I believe, help me in my unbelief. And when Jesus saw that a crowd came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, you mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. So I love this passage. It's one of my, I know I say a lot of passages are my favorite passages, but I love this passage because it shows this guy, even in the presence of Jesus, knowing that Jesus could help his son, he still wrestles. He believes, but he has unbelief. And I think that describes a lot of Christians, that we don't have, I wish I had 100% faith. I wish I didn't need faith, because Jesus would be right there when I need him, and I could talk to him, and he could hang out in my living room, and we could watch certain programs on Netflix together. I'm just joking. But here's the deal. We're going to struggle with our faith. We're going to have belief. But right alongside belief sometimes is going to be the struggle of unbelief. And I want you to understand that's okay. That's okay to have that struggle. That's okay to have that tension. But just like the mustard seed, just try. Try. We do not have an unreasonable faith. We have a very reasonable faith. Because we know that Jesus is real. We know that he is a historical figure. We have these accounts of him. So we have a reasonable faith. It's not make-believe. It's not mythology. We have faith in a real person. It's just that it was 2,000 years ago. And so we have just as much faith in Jesus as we do in, say, like Abraham Lincoln. We've never met Abraham Lincoln, but we learn American history, and we learn all about him and what he did for our country and who he was as a person. And so there's an element of faith that when we learn about history that really did happen. But who knows? Who knows? Unless we put faith in what the historian is teaching us. And so that's what we do when we look at the Bible. So what are my deepest doubts about my faith and about God? Be honest. Be honest. What do you struggle with? And it's good for you to process that with a small group that loves you and cares about you and will be a safety net for you. The third question I want us to wrestle with in the passage, we'll go back to Proverbs here. Proverbs chapter 3, one of my favorite passages. The question here is, what difficult things do I need to trust God with? So this is a really cool thing to think about. You know, as we have doubts, as we have struggles, does that separate us from God, or can that bring us closer to God? Can we take our doubts, can we take our struggles to God in faith? So let me read this to you. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. My son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart, so you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and men. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. So some very important stuff here. To take good advice from people that you trust. To take the wisdom and knowledge that's been passed on to you and bind it around your neck. A symbolic image of just holding it close to yourself, to your heart and mind. And to trust in the Lord with all your heart. And lean not on your own understanding. Sometimes, we got to be careful because we understand this much when God understands this much. So there's times when in our limited understanding, we have to trust that God understands infinitely much more than our little peon view of things in the limited amount of time that we have on this earth. And God, being all-knowing, has a much bigger plan in place where he's working his will out through our lives and through the lives of others. So the times when we don't understand, when we're questioning, when we're doubting, when we're angry or frustrated, we have to rest on the fact that maybe our understanding is very small compared to God's understanding and what he's taking us through and what he'll bring out of us, the good that he'll bring out of us as we process through some of the tough times that we go through. And then one last question I want you to wrestle with is, what crazy thing can I pray that God would do in my life? So here we're going to look at Matthew chapter 7, which comes from the Sermon on the Mount, which is one of my favorite passages. Verse 7 to 11 of Matthew chapter 7. It says, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him?" So when we're trying to do what's right, and we're trying to do God's will, and we're trying to seek faith, I think Jesus is saying here, just ask. And he's not saying ask God as if he's some cosmic Santa Claus, like, I want a new car, I want a big house, I want a beautiful wife. I mean, he's not saying just like ask like for things. I mean, it could possibly be an answer to prayer, or maybe God might say no. But what he's saying is that when we're following God's will, ask for what you need. You need faith? Ask for it. There's another passage in the Bible that says if you need wisdom, guess what? Ask for it. God is a big giver. And a lot of times he's just waiting for us to ask. When we're wrestling with doubt, to seek him out. When we're wrestling with confusion or not understanding, seek his wisdom and ask. Ask for wisdom through those situations. Ask for faith. Ask for prayers to be answered. And so the question becomes, what crazy thing can I pray that God would do in my life? What is that? And then my challenge to you is to pray for each other as a small group. Take some time to pray for each other. And just enjoy wrestling with these issues. You know, what causes me to be in awe of God? What are my deepest doubts about my faith and my belief in God? What difficult things do I need to trust God with? And then what crazy thing can I pray that God would do in my life? So think about that and wrestle with that as a small group. I miss you guys. I thrive on getting together with you guys. You guys are like my battery that keeps me going. And so it's like a battery's been ripped out of me to be in quarantine again. Or to be separated, I should say, for a little while. But I'm going to trust that it's only going to be a couple weeks, and hopefully Ohio. We need to pray for Ohio, the state of Ohio, that we get better, that the cases go down, that we turn the that we peak and kind of flatten the curve or whatever, and just be praying for that as a small group, so that hopefully by the end of November or beginning of December we can get back together and and be smart about it. So with that, I love you guys. Don't ever doubt that. I miss you. I care about you. You have my heart as a youth group. You guys are the best in the world, and I love you very much, and I miss you. And I hope that we can survive this together. Like I said, light at the end of the tunnel. A few more months here, hopefully, and vaccines will be out, and we just got to be vigilant. We got to be careful during the holidays. So with that in mind, take care, and God bless you.